Well. Welcome to yet another episode of the Kepsa Exchange. And as always, if you're about grit, growth, and game changing business moves, you will always hear it here. And we have another amazing guest, Karin Boomsma, who is the project director at Sustainable Inclusive Business. It's good to have you on set today. I'm
Thank you.
happy it's on a Friday. We get to dress down and you're looking colorful.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. It's actually almost on the 15th of November. So is that not today? That's today.
Yeah.
It's
Actually,
today?
yes,
It is.
yes.
So 10 years ago, we signed the launch of Sustainable and Inclusive Business under KEPSA. And I still remember that. And it was also in Westlands. So I think it's a really brilliant moment to talk about sustainable and inclusive business and Kenya and everything that happened from then till now.
Congratulations. A
Thank you.
decade of sustainability and doing amazing things in that space. But before we get there, I'm just curious also. So you came into the country, you fell
Yeah.
in love with it, and you
Yes.
decided to stay. What
Yes.
exactly attracted you to be around and to actually move on and invest, not just visit and go back?
For me, I think Kenya has a lot of potential. So it's an amazing and beautiful country. So you have all that beautiful nature, and you have actually really enthusiastic and funny people because I like the humor. I like working with people here. So, and I think they're very proactive. It's very like energetic, and therefore, and there was a lot of potential. And I had spoken to, before I came, I had spoken to Willem Lageweg, who's actually the co-founder and used to have a similar kind of business in the Netherlands, a bit like with 2,000 members solely on sustainability. And he sort of transmitted that virus of sustainability. And when I came here, we had first conversations. There's a lot of charity work and a lot of giving back to society within businesses has always been like that in Kenya, I think.
CSR, yeah?
Yeah, this the traditional more CSR, and Kenyans are generous in that. But there was not the awareness yet of how much impact do I have actually with my business on people, but also on the environment, and how do I, as a business, be part of nature, and what happens in that process, and that awareness wasn't really there. So I thought that is an opportunity to turn around and to have even much more impact actually, and that's how it started.
And how was the reception from a business perspective? I think you've mentioned the CSR aspect was quite traditional. And I think, if I'm correct to say, at the moment, what has become maybe the sustainability department in most organizations are just transitions of what used to be CSR departments. So
Yes.
what was the like how was the reception on, looking at businesses not just from a profitable perspective, but also from an impact perspective, particularly on environment, which is in most cases kind of at the bottom of the pyramid.
Yes, it's like it's not always a priority. It was interesting because people do have an interest, especially because we tried, which is in the name, sustainability and inclusivity. So to bring the social and the environmental aspect together. And you have always front runners and people that are very keen. Like the motivation is different. So if you need to be compliant, then there's always people that are just there to be compliant. But if it's not yet a compliance matter, then people are intrinsically motivated to actually look at what they're doing. There were sectors that were more keen to learn more.
Like which ones?
So we started with agriculture because it's very obvious that what you put in the soil and how you run your business will actually lead
Impact
to,
into
yes,
system and
into
health
exactly.
impact,
So
yeah.
that's very clear. So that was one. But we also had flower farms. so the horti and culture, culture
Horticulture.
horticulture sector, because there is a lot of export
Yes.
being done, and there is where compliance came in quicker than
Because of
in
the global
exactly.
compliance
So
standards.
yeah, so that was one of the keen sectors to know more and to do better, and also because you were forced to be certified, you couldn't use specific pesticides. You have to also look at the social impact, because human rights was quite strong in those sectors. So they were front runners, and you you worked with them, and we really took that sort of approach from a more sectoral approach in the beginning.
Okay.
Later we changed and we worked more on topics. And the word sustainability, when we started, was very much perceived as sustainability in profit. Like, how are we, even within KEPSA, when we started to say we need to establish a sustainability arm, that led to quite interesting conversations in the beginning on what that actually means.
Yeah.
And again, to have no distance from your personal impact and then on what you're going to improve on. So still, if you think you want to improve on water, it's on your business impact. What do you use in terms of water, and how do you deal with water? Not to ensure that there is a borehole somewhere else, or you give water to someone else. It's not about that. So that takes a bit of time to translate.
Yeah.
And then I think it took around 5 years, and then we saw the transition, really, that people used sustainability and inclusivity as words they understood, and they were now generally meaning the same for whatever
from different
business. Yeah,
perspectives.
exactly.
And then
Yeah.
there was also, or there is also the fact that there you can also look at thematic areas. For instance, I think for sustainable inclusive business, we look at circular economy, climate change, redefining business values, but also people power, people empowerment. Particularly for circular economy, 10 years ago, I don't think that term was already in existence. And even when it started coming into existence, it was a very, very new idea,
Yeah.
and especially within the Kenyan context. So, for even today, I think a lot of people still struggle to understand what exactly circular economy translates to. And I'm glad that SIB now, even at this 10 years anniversary, we are already looking at practicality of circular actions as opposed to already being stuck at the definition.
Yeah.
So at this point, throughout the transition, and Kenya is already considered one of the African countries that is actively transitioning to circular economy. How does it look like for us?
Yeah. So firstly, you're very right. Like, the terminologies, they make sometimes things very complex that are actually not so complex, because probably your grandmother and my grandmother were circular by default. Like, but they didn't know
They didn't know the word.
So I think that is something that was more even in Kenya the case than it was maybe in my home country in the Netherlands, but even there. So I think sometimes it's confusing to use a new terminology. It actually started, the whole concept of circularity, with the terminology cradle to cradle. And that was a book that I read, and then I got sort of overwhelmed because when you really think about circularity, so then you actually think about the cycle of life.
Yeah.
And the cycle of life means that if you use something, you eat something. Ultimately, what you eat will be the input would be an output, and that goes back into the soil, and then we create new inputs again. And that is sort of a circle, and it regenerates. So even if you look at animals, when their manure is the fertilizer for the soil, so they make it better, and then you can grow new things, and then they eat, etc. So naturally, circularity is actually, we like to mimic that into how we live our current life.
Okay.
And why circularity, I think, is a term that was used to explain where we want to go and as an explanation of a potential model to meet sustainability, because sustainability means just staying there forever. It's like lasting forever. So you don't do damage, you don't do, but you actually add value. And sustainability means that, yeah, you sustain, you are there.
But I think in human nature as well, we have this idea that is very fickle that, we have all the resources for forever. What you mean, like things are there forever, but are they really going to be there forever at the rate that we are treating natural resources? And at the same time, I'm just wondering, do you think we can fully achieve a circular economy?
Yeah, so I agree. No, we can't have, the resources are not, they are finite, so they won't last forever. But if we look at it, how we deal with it, then that is actually where the model of circularity comes in. Can you be completely circular? Definitely not tomorrow. And if we do not change everything, then it will be never. Because what we are currently doing is, so when you look at it from a very simple perspective, you look at what kind of resources do you need to make something, to create something. Yeah. The question is also not only why, like what you need to make something, but also why do you need that specifically? Our current economy runs as a linear economy. So we just take a resource, we make something, and then we dispose it. And in that process, not only is that the process, it's also based on cheap design. So it's badly designed. It's cheap production with cheap labor. So it's really actually very bad on
And
a
it's
lot
a
of
very
things.
fast moving.
And it's fast, it's overconsumption and overproduction. Because if you literally look at what you actually need, then we would probably need, I don't know, 10% of what we're currently using.
True.
So, and that is where circularity was a case in a few generations ago, because there was no plastic packaging. Like we have invented a lot of things to overconsume in a very fast pace, because that is how the economy grows and that's how money is being made. And now we need to keep that pace going, because otherwise there is no future in that current economic model. But if you look at a circular economy where you wouldn't have everything measured against monetary value, it's very simple. You need a pot to cook. You take resources. What kind of materials do you need for it? Nowadays, if you buy a cheap pot somewhere, they probably won't last. So we've actually wasted those resources. But if you make a conscious choice and you're intentional about a pot that your grandmother cooked in, that pot still functions. There's nothing wrong with that pot. Also, we didn't buy a new kitchen set because we felt like it, because there was a new trend going on.
Yeah.
You just had the pot where you made the stew in, and you had another pot to do something else in. And that was it. And if you needed that and you would start a life together, you were young, then you would maybe even ask that as a gift for your birthday or your wedding. So you had that, but also then nothing was packaged. So we would eat potatoes, and we had milk, and we had that. The milk was in a glass jar,
directly from the cow.
From the cow, it was, and then they picked the glass bottles, they cleaned, and then you got new ones. And the peels of the potatoes were also collected every week, and they were organic. So there was no packaging, there was nothing, and there was also therefore not much waste, because except for the potato peels. So if you look at that now, what we're doing now is currently with a circular model. Often we deal with legacy waste of a linear economy. So we're trying to say there's wealth in waste. That's nice, but we ultimately need to move to what are we actually making? How do we design it? And what materials are we using for it? And is this actually durable? Is this a sustainable choice? So it's great that we expand and extend the lifespan of the things we're currently using in a linear economy. It's great that we create jobs in the process, but a lot of the things are not even designed to do so. So if you want to repair a phone, you can maybe replace a battery, but can you truly take all the like, is it a modular design? Can you truly take all the components out and then replace them over time and then update your phone? You can't. So we're still working with very short-term consumption models
And designs as well.
and designs as well. So only if you really truly want to be circular, the phone that we choose today should last a lifetime, while we can repair and replace and also safely recycle parts of it that might be outdated, in that kind of way.
Good.
Yeah.
And I think also listening to you talk about your childhood and growing up, that was in Netherlands, but it's a replica of the same, environment that I grew up in here back in Kenya. And most of us, I think, and especially the millennials going backwards,
Yeah.
it's pretty much the same setup that we grew up with, very, very minimal, if not zero waste, because everything that was an output became an input for whether it's going to as manure to the farm, or it's refilling and taking back, and then tomorrow you go and it's refilled again. And it also reminds me of that song that says, "My coat of many colors that mama made for me." And I see that a lot lately in also, sustainable runways, from a textiles perspective, with brands that are showcasing circular designs, looking at, outfits that are pretty high quality and durable and, long life, that are made from reused textiles materials. So I think it's an exciting time to actually be talking and leading conversations about circular economy, particularly at a time when this concept is not just theory, it's already being in action. And I'm just wondering whether you have one favorite example of, a business or someone, an individual who's actually, redefining circular economy in practicality.
Oh gosh, there's so many, I think, which is the great excitement, because there are really many. There is a great example like Insecti Pro, dealing with organic waste and using black soldier flies, and then you actually create much healthier compost faster, and you create an alternative protein to feed animals. But there's also Loop Pet doing the same now for pet food, because if you consider how much we actually spend nowadays and how much food is being produced for all the pets that we are having and loving. So those are funny examples, or funny, but they are interesting because they are truly
And
circular.
practical to our
Yes,
day-to-day lives.
and the nice thing about real circular businesses is that they always solve one problem while creating a new business at the same time. So their business is not just problem solving, it's also bringing a new product that is circular on the market. There's a beautiful business which is not in Kenya, but it's in South Africa. It's called Manabru. There's a lot of invasive species, and they turn those around into an alternative for coffee. But it's so healthy that it helps. You could have it as a supplement. Now that's very difficult to register, but it is actually a natural medicine for diabetes patients. So not only one product comes out of actually taking away invasive species that disrupt biodiversity, but then solving a problem and then creating 3 new businesses, because the other one is having wood snips in building blocks. So I love that. But when you were talking about your mom's, my mom gave me a coat
Of many colors.
with many colors. My mom truly did that.
What
So
she did.
we till I was 12 or 13. So what you're saying, it's also a generational experience. And the beauty about circularity for me is that you're able to actually bring back the past into the future. So we have a lot of good things. We don't need to reinvent. We don't need to have special inventions to clear the sky. We have trees. It's very simple. We have that. And I think so. My mom used to make all my clothes. So she taught me, okay, what do you need? You need pants, or you need a skirt, you need a top, and you need a winter coat. So she would even make that. And then we would look at the colors, and she would take me to the market, and you would identify which fabric. So I have this passion for fabrics anyway, and textiles. So in the textile space, yes, there's a lot of beautiful examples. So I love still going to the market like Kikumba. If you go to Mtumba, just to see the beautiful textiles that I'm very happy to wear another 10 years. So most of my clothing is old.
There's a
Not
particularly green dress.
yes, there's a green dress that was recycled a lot of times for the conferences specifically, but they were already old. So, and I still have them, so I still wear that. So, on average, I think a lot of pieces, yeah, you have some here and there that you add to, but are 10, 15 years old. But it also shows you that it's what was the beauty and what is the beauty in circularity. And for example, in textile, it's not fashion, it's actually style. You can be very stylish without have to follow actually a boring trend that is gone next year, and they come back.
I mean, come back
your
because
jeans,
especially like now, I'm seeing with my daughter who's a preteen teen. It's technically asking me, why didn't you keep your 1990s
it's
clothes
true.
for me
It's
to come
true.
and
Every
wear?
10, 15 years, everything
Yes,
comes back.
the
They say,
cycle comes
now it needs to
back.
be low rise, now it needs to, and you're like, I should have never even changed it back then, because that's what's back in fashion if you want to follow fashion.
And how are your kids taking this transition? I know you don't really shut up about circularity even at a personal space, even at home. And do they feel sometimes like it's too much, or are they
Yes,
actually
and they call it
adapting
capsa stories. So they literally say to me, sometimes they say, Mom, no, 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 no capsa stories, no lecture, no nothing. But deep down, like their choices, they like my eldest daughter, she said, I actually have no money. She started studying. She said, but it's really problematic because I'm not allowed to buy anything from Shane. So she doesn't do that. I mean, I'm not that strict in a way because we also live in the current system. So as much as you try, you also make mistakes. Okay, we don't waste food, and we put it in containers, and we put it in the kitchen and all that. And I still forget sometimes my shopping bag. So then you're ending up with a lot of reusable shopping bags that we also have. I'm equally guilty of that. But my other daughter, she said for Halloween, what is not allowed in my house is balloons, because they're really silly plastic things, and you use them once. It's single-use plastic, and it's really unnecessary. And I actually also don't like plastic so much, so I don't find it pretty. And so she said, but I need to be the clown from the movie It for Halloween, and I need one red balloon. And I said, you cannot have a red balloon. And then she came back home and she said, I got a red balloon. I said, where did you get it? She said, at my friend's house. So she got the red balloon. Yeah. So sometimes they get tired of me. And also, if you really think about a concept, there's almost hardly anything you can get right. Because do you buy the milk in the plastic container, but the plastic container can't be recycled, or you buy the other milk, but that milk wasn't produced well because it has all those antibiotics, it has this, that. So do I change the tire on my car? So my partner would say, can I change the tire on my car, or I need to wait? But if it wears off, it's dangerous, but I don't know where they recycle the tires. So it's sometimes also overwhelming. What kind of choices you need to make. Do you eat a fish from the sea? Is it sustainably caught, or from the farm? But in the farm, is that a sustainable practice?
Produced,
So sometimes you get sad about those kind of things.
And there are some compromises along the way. All right, interesting. And 10 years down the line, and this year with the conference, the annual conference, I think you've seen a lot of interest also in the conversation. People who have become a part of the community of practice, people who have converted, people who are living the talk. And it must be exciting. And I'm just wondering how to make sure, or how you make sure that this momentum is maintained and the ball doesn't drop at some point, from the team that you work with all the way to the partners that you partner with, but also that community that has come on board and said we subscribe to the concept of circularity.
Yeah. That's always a challenge, because I think the conference is a beautiful way to bring all those brilliant minds and ideas and super positive people and concepts together. Especially because you realize, so that is one way to do it, and to not lose and drop balls and to keep pushing. It's one way, because you realize that people don't, they do know each other in the space, but they don't really, and they don't work together. But still, because you're running your own business. So if Afrowema is making beautiful upcycled jeans, runway dresses, and also just daily wear, she knows Nelly from Green Thing, which who we also work with, who makes does recycled glass. So actually anything you can replace in terms of plastics, plus natural cleaning materials, no toxics, etc. But they know each other, but they don't know each other. So one way of keeping that community alive and actually inspired, and also being able to move forward, is to bring them together on an annual conference. As much as you sometimes think after 10 years people know each other, it's not the case. And actually, again, I think we're expecting 250 people, and we're having 2 days.
Yeah.
So you see the interest is there. And it's also because what the key is for us to facilitate is that circular businesses need very different partnerships. So if you look at Delamere, who does fruit juice, now there is I forgot the name, but now there is a Mananasi. Now is Mananasi. Those are projects that we also facilitate. So what we do is looking at trying specific circular businesses to kickstart, and what circular businesses need is very different partnerships, and they need also commitment to become a norm in the value chain. So Mananasi, what they do is take the pineapple waste from Delamere,
Del Monte.
Del Monte.
Del Monte.
Oh yeah, sorry. Del Monte. And they convert that into fiber for textile. So you get an alternative for textile, and it is a natural fiber. And they have signed a contract for 2 years, so they can really test how that works. But Del Monte would have never thought
That
on its
is,
own.
yeah.
Maybe they had thought, can we compost it? Can it be compost? But to think that it can be material for another sector, it's very different. So that is really what sustainable inclusive business facilitates, in terms of, even on the Kenyan Plastic Pact, we do the same. You facilitate what we really do not want to use. So again, it's a design choice. What we really do not, because we can't deal with it. It's really destroying environment. It's polluting. It's really bad for us as people. So we really look at, okay, this we really need to refuse, eliminate. But not only saying what we need to eliminate, but how do you do that? What are then good alternatives? So from the design perspective, and if you think you still need, for the time to bridge, to need plastics, what type of plastics can we actually handle, and what can we manage, and how do they need to look like? So we advise on that, and then you try that out, and you create innovations like the transparent water bottles for like from Coca-Cola, for example. They have now clear water bottles, and that is much
easier to
recycle, and then it can become a bottle to bottle, and that's what you ultimately want, because then you can use the same material over and over again. Okay. You don't use more.
So I'm also sensing a lot of design thinking and innovation, among the businesses, which has also been an output for job creation, and especially among the youth. But I am cognizant of the fact that with all this work that you're doing comes a lot of awareness creation responsibility to get the message out to as many people as possible, from the businesses to the consumers. Are there current campaigns that you're running, whether it's at the plastic space or at the organic space or textile space, and what can the audience look out for in the campaign?
Yeah, there's two things that we're currently running, but it's what you say. It's also one thing that we continuously do, basically. So whether it's producing a magazine or having all those good practices gathered in one place so people can find them, we are currently running a campaign with WWF
Okay.
on single-use plastics, and what to phase out, really what to not use. We also can leverage on the single-use plastic bill that we have in the country. And there are a lot of things we still need to really push for. And we can start pushing for that within the MICE and the hospitality and the tourism industry. There, single-use plastic use is very visible. So that visibility might not be the biggest impact negatively in the environment, but the visibility really helps to drive the awareness and to actually create a behavioral change and to push businesses to change their choice of what you use for what. So that's one. And the other one we are currently working on is a toolkit for the textile industry. So textile and fashion. And that's very contextualized, because if you design something like how to apply circularity in a textile and fashion space in Kenya is very different from Ethiopia, for example. And the textile space, very long value chain. So you can talk about fibers, you can talk about cotton, you can talk about plastics, because a lot of our clothes have 60% synthetic material. But in that toolkit, we really look at what is currently relevant in Kenya.
Okay.
And in Kenya, there's a lot on secondhand clothing, on upcycling, and on design, so on fashion choices and materials. But we've lost majority of our textile producing mills, etc. We've lost them because of using synthetic fibers, and that's all coming from Asia. So a lot of import from other countries.
And a lot of conversations that are still sometimes controversial and sometimes debatable around textiles, that I think we need an entire conversation specifically for textiles, and probably have the different players in the value chain in the conversation, so that they can give input from all their perspectives. And I think this material can be found on the website, Sustainable Inclusive Business, and the
The
Kenya
toolkit is not
Plastics
yet
part.
launched, but yes, definitely.
Yes.
So sustainableinclusivebusiness.org,
Yes. Okay.
and then kpp.co.ke.
KE.
Yes.
All right, so be on the lookout for those materials. I think they will be launched in the next few weeks. Quite educative material. And as we come to the end of the conversation, although I want to keep you for much much longer, do you have a call to action? As we end the year, as we end 2020, as we get to the beginning of 2026, is there something that you would want, a message that you want the audience to just leave them thinking about?
I really love to just preach the slogan or the theme that we run with this year at the conference, which is reimagine. And really reimagine and bring back like the past back into the future, because I think if you are intentional, so be more intentional, and rethink and redesign, and then reimagine what you're actually doing. So sometimes be just conscious and intentional, and then make choices. And I think that is a call for action, and everyone can have a look at what that means. And you don't have to turn your life around tomorrow, but you can do things slightly different.
Yeah, and even if it means starting one thing and one step at a time.
Exactly, you can make one choice and make that a success, and then move to the next step.
Okay, curious. You have quite a lot of tattoos. I see the African map. I see a shell. I see smile. I see sunshine.
Yeah.
Tell us about about that.
yes, it's now Africa, because Africa is just, I really like Africa. I love Africa. I like Kenya. I think it's an amazing place to stay very close to nature. And we are part of nature. And I think that's another call maybe for action. Rethink your worldview. Like, who are you in this world? Is nature just at your disposal, or are you actually based within, you are part of nature? Because without, we couldn't even breathe. So I think that is what I find easier to connect to and stay connected to in Kenya and in Africa in general. And yeah, all those, yeah, wonderful. I love life. I love I love life, and I think if we care for life, then and everything is life. So all the plants, the animals, the insects, and the people around, I think we could have incredible lives, and sometimes we're wasting it, not in terms of actual material waste, but just on materialistic elements. And I think, we can rethink that.
Yeah, quite some insights we've been left with to think about there, Karin Boomsma. Such a pleasure to have this conversation with you, and congratulations once again on the 10-year anniversary to you and the entire team.
Thank you very much.
And we look forward to see more amazing initiatives and projects from Sustainable Inclusive Business.
Thank you very much for having me. And yes, we keep rolling.
Keep rolling.
Keep rolling.
A story is given of a young girl who lived in the post civilization era, and where everything, including water, was rationed. And at that point, she discovered in her explorative journey a seed of a tree. And she went on a journey to find ground where she could plant that seed. And through the desert, through the wind, through the night, the cold, she found a place where the seed could grow, and watered it with her last drop of the water. Miraculously, the tree grew, and it became the salvation of her community, even though it cost her last drop of the water. Sometimes it is the little actions, and sometimes it is the big actions that we take that will save this world. Like Karin Boomsma said, we are one with nature. Think about that. And until next time, see you then.